Wow.
Wowee. Once again, I'm Michelle Murphy, and I'm here with my new hero, Albert Maysles. And I have been studying up on him this week. And I can tell you I've fallen a little bit in love. I mean, my husband's right there, but this guy, when you learn about him, I mean, I know you're wowed by the film, which I was, but learning about Albert is an amazing experience. I've just taken to interviewing people late in life, and I was telling a friend of mine, they said, why are you drawn to this? What makes you at all good at it? And I said, it's one word, and that's love. And when I was having breakfast with Albert this morning, I told him that, and he gave me 5, right?
Well, I learned several from another film that I'm making of children that are 6 years old, 2 at a time, kids that are friends or relatives, and they just talk to each other. So they got into this mode of talking about what their favorite word was, and the boy said, help. And then he came up with another one, creativity. And then she came up with love. And they're all of the same sort. And it is most important. And if it doesn't go into the making of a film, it may be technically beautiful, but it has to have love.
I don't think he's meant to.
And Paul McCartney certainly knew that love would be the way of taking care of some of the misery that beladen the city of Manhattan at that time.
Albert, I think what you tend to do with people is you give them a sense of permission to be themselves. And we were all experiencing that tonight, I think. Even though Paul McCartney is a neighbor for all of us out here, and we run into him at the Hampton Chutney or wherever he's hanging out or jogging, you gave us a chance to really get to know the man, who he really is. And even Eric Clapton or David Bowie, you capture that feeling because you give people permission to really be themselves, like you did in Grey Gardens. It's no different. It's all your way of allowing the people to be themselves while you have your camera invisibly there.
We give no direction. I don't tell anybody what to do. I don't even ask questions. I don't do interviews. I'm very patient in seeing what takes place, and so many wonderful things do take place when you're watchful and notice them. It all starts off with this relationship, because you have to have a proper relationship with the people you're filming in order for them not to be distracted by the camera or asking for directions. It starts with the gaze. You look at them and they look back and they see that kind of empathy in your eyes that allows them to be themselves. And the process goes on and on, and you get exactly what you need.
And you remain very much your own person. No matter who you're doing a film about, you remain Albie, as I now like to call you, like your mother called you, if you'll allow me to.
That's lovely.
But you are always you, no matter who you're with. There you are filming the President of the United States, Clinton, at the time perhaps, or, you're there with Eric Clapton.
Or Fidel Castro.
Yes, or Fidel Castro, who, when he landed in Cuba, said to the taxi driver, just take me to Fidel, please. And he did, right?
Yeah.
But you're yourself.
Several days later, I'm with him at a reception at the Chinese embassy, and we're standing shoulder to shoulder, and a a messenger comes rushing in, hands him a telegram. He opens it and reads it and turns to me and says, "Shall I translate it for you?" "Please do. Your State Department has just broken off relations with Cuba." The only thing that I regret was I didn't have a little flip camera in my pocket. But I carry one around with me now just in case.
And I understand you prefer amateur kind of productions than all the bells and whistles. That's what's going on that we pay to see. Well, I don't know if I'm putting words in your mouth. You can explain it.
Well, I like a good one, whether it's amateur or professional, but oftentimes the amateur can be better in that it's a heart-to-heart experience. Too much of movie making is made for commercial purposes. Well, a friend of mine just made recently a film of his war experience, and I saw it and I thought it was very, very good. And having seen it, I said, "Have you shown it to the History Channel, which I know shows war films?" And he said, "Oh, yeah." I said, "What happened?" "Oh, they turned it down. They said it was too personal." Come on. That's exactly what's so important about any film, that it has that kind of drive behind it. So many good works of art. There's something happened to that person as a child that the work of art somehow replicates in some direct or indirect way. And this is what makes it great.
I was asking Albert this morning over breakfast what has kept him so incredibly humble. We see so much arrogance, especially here in the Hamptons. And I said, you know, you've met everybody and you have your feet totally on the ground, no swelled head. And I said, how did this happen to you? And you see somebody else who achieves a tiny bit of success and they're so full of themselves. And here you are, very grounded and very humble. And he said it's because of his mother.
Well,
his upbringing.
One thing that my mother used to say is, there's good in everybody. It's not exactly what Michael Moore is looking for. He's very determined to put people down. The films are good, but because he starts off with a kind of a liberal orientation that is very nearly the same as my own, but then he uses people with some kind of abuse. He would get much further, I believe, adopting the words of my mother. It's a very good way to look at life. Liking people, and then having made that kind of film, like what you saw just now and what you saw yesterday, Give Me Shelter, those people become your friends. You haven't met them directly, but indirectly through film, which can bring you closer to that person than any other form of art. You really become friends.
I think one of the most amazing things about getting to know Albert's work, as phenomenal as this particular film was that we just saw, and riveting, it's one small piece of his incredible body of work, which goes from a concert of Rufus Wainwright to Bible salesman, to, of course, like we saw last night, Give Me Shelter, so many years ago, and now he's planning to do a film about people he meets on trains going all over the world. And so you keep your sense of self through your work, because when you finish one work, it's still Albert going on to the next work.
The obvious film about people on trains is to interview them, and that could be very interesting. But instead of that, I just let them talk until I find somebody where there's a story about to happen when they get off the train. And I filmed that story. I filmed a woman who told me that when she was 3 years old, she lost contact with her family because of an ugly divorce in the family. And she had just, so she's never seen her mother. She's 26 years old, traveling with her 2 children. Why is she on the train? Because she just got a call from a woman in Philadelphia, she's in Pittsburgh, saying that it's her mother. Get on the next train, she says, and I'll be there for you at the railway station. She gets off the train, nobody's there. Just as she's beginning to walk up the stairs, there's a woman up the top of the stairs, flings open her arms, rushes down the stairs. They're all smiles. They talk for quite a while. And finally the mother turns to me and says, "Isn't she gorgeous?" It's that kind of thing. It's an amazing process. You film people experiencing something. In this case, this wonderful experience. And you humanize these people who otherwise would be total strangers. And then you're friends forever.
Albert has said that if we had only gotten to know one family in war-torn countries in the Middle East, we would have had a different feeling about going to war. And that's what his kind of work can do for us, is bring the humanity back. Am I saying that?
Yes. Well, I felt that way.
Wish?
I felt that way 60 years ago, 55 years ago, 1955, when I went to Russia with the idea of doing exactly that, of humanizing through photographing, through filming ordinary citizens. And being a psychologist, I thought it would be interesting to get into mental hospitals. And it's a long story, but I got into those mental hospitals by crashing a party and meeting the top Soviet leaders, and one of them gave me the phone number for the head of psychiatry. And I spent several weeks in those mental hospitals filming. And the result is something very humanizing. I haven't taken the film to Russia, but I'm planning to go to a film festival in Moscow and show that film and some other stuff that I think they'd be very interested in.
When Albert and I were having breakfast this morning, he said, "Gee, we've led kind of parallel lives." Albert has a degree in psychology. He has 4 children. He lives in Harlem, in a magnificent home. It's a beautiful brownstone. His wife is a fabulous cook, and the walls are filled to the ceilings with books and the most beautiful colors. It's a paradise. And you moved to Harlem about 7 or 8 years ago, correct?
That's right.
And Albert is running a school for underprivileged children to learn how to make their own films. Which
3 of their films got shown on television. And these are kids not older than 14.
I told you you're going to fall in love with him, too. He's an incredible man.
We're also showing documentaries at my studio. We have a theater that's about half the size of this one. And recently we showed a series of Black Panther films. One of the Black Panthers, one of the most famous ones, who's in jail now. He's been in jail for 27 years, and he's got the rest of his life to spend in jail. But the film shows that he's clearly innocent. And when the film is over, he gets on the phone from prison and talks to the audience. Can you imagine how moving that was? And we do that all the time. Somebody important to the film, usually the director, attends the film and attends the Q&A after that.
And one thing that moved me is all these icons you captured in this film that we just saw, their actual spirits and personalities came through in a way that I had never quite seen, even though these have been heroes of mine like David Bowie or Eric Clapton and Billy Joel. And I think the audience would agree that you make them human in the little moments you capture about each of them. Certainly Paul, with his body language, his jokey quality that we don't really get to see, his snapping his fingers all the time and speaking that language of music constantly. We're not really privy to all of that, and you bring that home to us.
Well, it takes a zest for discovery rather than control. And I think you'll agree that was a beautiful moment when he's walking through the streets and that woman suddenly comes forth with something lovely about him. I forget what she says. Do you remember?
Do you mean the woman who he kept staring at out of the back of the limousine?
No, she's on the street, on the sidewalk.
Okay.
She's talking on a cell phone.
Okay. I'll have to see it for a fourth time. I'll take questions in a moment. I just want to mention, though, that Albie's glasses are for sale. You can look them up on the internet, which I came upon, and you can buy glasses and go around and pretend you're Albert.
Oh, yeah, you do need a camera in your hand, though.
That's right. That's right. And just one last question from me, because I could go on for hours and hours, and I know everyone else has questions for you, but those of us who have been so inspired by your work, how much money would it take today, with equipment being fairly reasonable, to get started as you're teaching these underprivileged children, to get started making our own films?
Well, I made a film for very little money. 3.5-year-old children in conversation having breakfast. And one of them went into this whole thing of, oh, I want more butter. How much more? I want more butter, more than that. And went into this long discourse on butter. It went on for 5 minutes or so, until finally she turned to her friend and said, if you don't eat butter, I'll fight you. And it made a nice little film. It cost me the tape, which is $3, and that was the cost of making it, $3.
What do you think of films being made with our iPhones? Is that worth doing, like I did of you at breakfast this morning? I'm wondering how much I could get for that.
I should have had one of those when I was with Fidel. I would have gotten that wonderful message. I don't have one on me now, but I'm planning from now on to carry one of those in my pocket, because with a camera like that, there are moments when you can get still closer to people, and I don't want to miss that closeness.
Thank you. So we're all inspired now, and we have the $3 each, so we can get going. Thank you. Well, I want to thank everybody. I'm sorry I've been given the sign that they're closing the theater. Thank you so much, and we're hoping to be back next year.
Thank you. Thank you very much.